stuck in a worthless place like this forever. Go far, far away, even further than where Thors went. You, the son of Thors, will go there. And you must never forget. You have what it takes to be a true warrior, son of Thors. I'm gonna kill you!
What is a true warrior? It's a question that seems existential in a sense, challenging our conceptions of what a warrior really is. But really, the only part of this phrase that invokes these emotions is the true part. We all know what a warrior is, but a true warrior, well, that's something different, and that something transcends common understanding. And furthermore, the existence of a true warrior directly implies the existence of a false warrior. What even is that? Who even is that? In the last episode of season 1, Askeladd dies, and someone who through numerous of trials and tribulations went from being the cunning and self-interested antagonist of the show to now lying there, slowly fading away, a lonely soul, a hero of Wales, and more importantly, a twisted father-like figure to our main character Thorfinn. And as he's laying there in his last moments, he asks Thorfinn how he intends to live after he's gone, and asks him where he thinks he's headed. Askeladd then tells Thorfinn to run away from this accursed world, run away to somewhere even further than his great father Thors has ever been, because this is your true fight, Thorfinn. Run away and become a true warrior. But what does he mean? What does Askeladd mean when he tells Thorfinn to be a true warrior? Is he not on his way? Thorfinn has slaughtered armies, acquired riches greater than many men combined, and even went toe-to-toe with one of the strongest Vikings to ever exist. Is this not the makings of someone to be truly great? Why does he even need to run anyways, and what exactly is he running from? What is a true warrior? The only thing resembling an answer to this question is Thor's quote from the very first episode. He says, "A true warrior does not need a sword." Quite a powerful statement, but really not enough to figure out what a true warrior really is. But it is this quote exactly that has been planted in season 1 that laid the groundwork for one of the greatest sequels in anime history. This second season is a journey that brings us to the heart of a true warrior, and nowhere else will you find this journey than in Makoto Yukimura's greatest work yet, Vinland Saga Season 2. In order to figure out what a true warrior is, we must first figure out what is not, and to that I point to the son of Kettle, the brother of Omar, and the royal guard's very best, Thorgil. Thorgil is this large, intimidating, and aggressive force in Vinland Saga Season 2. He towers over most warriors with this intimidating size, he brandishes a weapon that's larger than most, and the only thing that's on Thorgil's mind at all times is whether or not he can fight. He explains to Omar how glorious and noble it is to fight in war, and the way he explains it to him and how animated he is when he does it, you can tell he has a very close affinity to Nordic philosophy. And if you were paying close enough attention, you would realize that these are the character traits of somebody who was very active in season 1 but is more or less absent from season 2. This character is also large, his character is also aggressive, and if there's one thing that he likes to do, it's to go to war. The character I'm referring to is Thorkell the Tall, as he possesses all of the same character traits and is virtually the same as Thorgil, except for one big difference. While Thorkell the Tall and Thorgil are virtually the same character, there's a vast difference in how they were received in each season, and I think this difference brings us one step closer to figuring out what a true warrior really is. You see, Thorkell in season 1 was beloved by the fan base because in season 1, you follow the path of the Vikings, so you have people like Bjorn, people like Askeladd, and people like Floki in the show, so somebody like Thorkell really fits perfectly with the season. Season 1 was filled with violence, chaos, and murder, so it only makes perfect sense that the character who is the most violent, who is the most chaotic, and does the most murder is one of the most beloved characters in the show. But when you look at somebody like Thorgil, who exists in a season that's slow, kind, and gentle, and exists with characters like Omar, Einar, and the Old Master, he really sticks out like a sore thumb. When Thorgil does atrocious acts like justifying murder, beating children, and even threatening to take the arms off of a boy who stole from him, instead of laughing or deriving entertainment from this as we might have in season 1, we really feel deeply unsettled. And that's because the farmland arc no longer follows this war for power struggles that's been going on. So that means we're outside of this Viking world. We're outside of this Viking world and we're able to fully and accurately assess the morality of these Vikings' actions. And this is why Thorkell was so beloved in season 1 and how Thorgil wasn't as beloved in season 2. The veil is now pulled back on these Nordic men and we're able to truly see them for who they really are. So Askeladd was right all along. Thorfinn needs to run away from this Viking world because this Viking world will turn you into somebody like Thorgil. And if the show's trying to tell us anything, Thorgil is not a true warrior. So run away, Thorfinn. Go find your reason to fight. There's a line that Thorgil says in the show that I find to be the antithesis of Villain Saga's narrative. In episode 21, Thorgil tells Olmar not to worry about being manipulated by Canute in order to start a war, because even though it was you, it could have been anyone else. There will always be someone looking to take out that aggression and violence on someone, because at the end of the day, there will always be a reason to fight. And through Thorgil, thus the Nordic philosophy, this is how things ought to be. The noble thing to do is to find your reason to fight, and in the eyes of the Nordic, this is how you become one step closer to becoming a true warrior. And honestly, at first glance when looking at characters like Thorfinn, Olmar, and Gardar, Thorgil seems absolutely right. All three of these characters represent reasons that may compel somebody to want to fight. Look at Thorfinn on one hand, him being from the gentle land of Iceland, knowing only the ways of kindness and pacifism through his father Thor's, had the misfortune of watching him die. And through this very traumatizing experience, Thorfinn's reason to fight became anger and revenge as he vowed to take the head of the man who killed his father. And this revenge seems very justified, as how dare someone take the life of a person you love? All the laughs, the cries, the loves, and the possibility of strengthening that love in the future, all ripped away. How dare Askeladd do something like that and not expect Thorfinn to retaliate? And moving on, we also look at a character like Gardar. Gardar was a family man who lived a rather wholesome life. His family was neither rich nor poor, but he enjoyed the simpler things in life, like helping around the house, raising his son, and spending time with his wife. But then an iron swamp was found, somewhere deep within a forest, and the opportunity presented itself to Gardar to be able to acquire some of this iron by helping his friends join the fight of battling over the land. So in the face of this new opportunity blossomed Gardar's reason to fight, as these newly acquired riches can change his life. He's fighting for wealth and power. And honestly, it makes perfect sense. Who wouldn't want wealth and power? Those are the two very things that make this life worth living. So wanting to get more of it to better secure your life is nothing short of relatable, Gardar. And finally, we have Olmar. Olmar, being from similar humble backgrounds as Thorfinn, also found his reason to fight. His whole life, Olmar looked up to his older brother Thorkell, and as a member of the royal guard for King Canute, Thorgil was feared, honored, and more importantly, respected. And being the gentle and timid being he is, Olmar grew insecure of these traits, as the Viking world shames people like him. They shame traits like compassion and empathy, and glorify traits like aggression and strength. The Nordic philosophy has no time for kindness. You must be strong and valiant, and this is what a true Nordic warrior should be like. And these insecurities Olmar has grew even larger, given the pressure from his brother to conform, and not even having the support of his own mother. So Olmar sets out to become like Thorgil, sets out to get that respect, and sets out to become a true warrior. But in his big moment to show Canute how capable he was, he couldn't even cut through a dead pig. But then afterwards, the guards thought it was a bright idea to go over to Olmar and make fun and poke at his character. So Olmar challenges one of them to a duel, to prove how strong he really is. So Olmar's reason to fight, in the worldview of Thorgil, is pride. He feels it's been stripped from him and it's his right to go fight for it back. And honestly, who can blame him? Olmar was already feeling down about flunking his big shot. Why do the guards want him to feel worse than he already does? This type of behavior is everything but respectful, and when you get disrespected, according to Vikings, you must fight to get it back. What at first seems like a very valid claim from Thorgil, where he falls short in his analysis, is that even though there may be a reason to fight, that doesn't mean you should. and in almost all cases, bringing yourself down that road of violence and aggression will only end in regret and will cause you to stray away from your true self. Think of Thorfinn at the end of Season 1, and think of Thorfinn at the beginning of Season 2. He spent most of his life trying to kill Askeladd in battle and chase his reason to fight, and when Askeladd is killed by Canute, now leaving his rage unfulfilled, he realized how far he's fallen from the Thorfinn we first knew. He realized how many people he's killed, how many lives he's ruined, how many people like Einar he's created. Thorfinn was broken. Thorfinn was ashamed of the person he's become, and that's why he acted the way he did in the beginning of the season. He didn't know how to live with himself. The guilt and sadness consumed him, and he truly became a shell of his former self. Then think of Gardar, a village that was once innocuous and absent from conflict, catapulted into the front line of danger. And this danger led to the village being raided, his home destroyed, his wife turned into a slave, and his son passing away. And Gardar realized that all of this anguish, all of this turmoil fell directly on his hands, as he was the one who made the call to join the war. An honest family man turned into the very person who destroyed his family. It's quite a devastating sight to see. And Gardar couldn't bear it. Gardar couldn't bear the emotional weight of his actions, and when we first see him in Season 2, it's very clear just how far he's fallen. And finally, think of Omar. Omar murdered somebody in cold blood, and through that, started a war, and brought the farm its first real danger. And Omar realized just how far he's fallen after he comes back to the farm to see dead bodies after dead bodies piling on the ground. Bodies who were once sons, bodies who were once fathers, bodies who were once brothers, all reduced to a simple corpse. And it was all his fault. Omar started the war that took place on Kettle's farm, and because of Omar's actions, he had the blood of hundreds on his hands. Someone as kind and as gentle as Omar couldn't even fathom how he was able to let himself cause this much death. Words cannot describe how dire that identity crisis is, and although Thorgil thinks that a Nordic warrior should find his reason to fight, this will almost in all cases lead you down a path of regret, and the regret of letting yourself slip away is a very large bill to pay, and this was only possible in Villain Saga because people like Thorfinn, Gardar, and Omar all thought they had valid reasons to cause harm to somebody. Going back to episode 21 in Omar's conversation with Thorgil, he says something that is key to Villain Saga's theme and is one of the most beautiful scenes in the entire show. After his father gets incapacitated, Omar is now burdened with the future of the farm. With his army clearly being outmatched by Canute and their demise being inevitable, will he keep fighting or will he surrender? Thorgil and his mother agreed. They think he should keep fighting, because they say at this point, it's no longer about winning or losing the war, but rather keeping or losing your honor. And as a Nordic warrior, you must always maintain your honor. So do the courageous thing and fight for your honor. And this is where Thorgil says the line about reasons to fight that was mentioned earlier. But instead of agreeing with Thorgil, Omar snaps at him. Omar snaps at him and says it should have never led to this. Him embarrassing himself in front of Canute should not have led to an entire war being started on his farm. Omar admits that he was embarrassed after his pig showing. He felt completely worthless. But instead of being brave enough to sit there and be laughed at by the royal guard, he opted out and chose the easy way and wanted to harm people. And that decision snowballed into hundreds of more people being harmed in the massacre in front of him today. What he did back then was him running away from the feeling of embarrassment. Omar was a coward. And it's this realization here is what makes Villain Saga truly beautiful. So many times in life, you are challenged to face a harsh reality you aren't quite ready to admit yet. Whether it's the reality that your beloved father who has raised you for 6 years is now gone, the reality that you have succumbed to the endless pursuit of material wealth, or simply the reality that you are just not enough for yourself. Whatever it is, that reality will always be a tough pill to swallow. But that doesn't mean we run away from it. That doesn't mean we go on 11-year revenge tours, bring danger to a peaceful village, and start full-force warfare to dodge this reality. There will be times in life where the tide comes and getting wet is inevitable. And what makes someone a true warrior is the courage to face that tide head on instead of running away and hurting people in the process. A true warrior has courage to face the tide, because a true warrior knows that facing the tide means not selfishly sacrificing innocent people in order to run away from it. There's a quote out there that says, if you never heal from what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who never cut you. And I think this is the pinnacle of what Thorgil is trying to tell us. A true warrior does not need a sword because having a sword means you have intention to kill. and you had intention to kill because you found a reason to fight, and you only found that reason to fight because you're trying to oh so dearly run away from your true emotions of regret, embarrassment, grief, failure. But you know deep down it's not okay to kill. You know deep down there's never a reason to kill, only a means to fit a selfish end of emotional cowardice. A true warrior doesn't need a sword, but rather a hoe and shovel, because when you breathe the dirt, plow the land, and grow the seeds, you'll truly understand and appreciate the essence of life. Thorfinn is a true warrior, not because he's brave in battle, not because he raided villages, not because he stood toe-to-toe with one of the greatest Vikings to ever exist. He's a true warrior because he put his sword down. He put his sword down and picked up a gardening hoe, because he realized deep down that a warrior's hands are meant to give life, not viciously rip it away. And once you make that switch from being a life taker to a life giver, you'll finally realize how invaluable life is. And in turn, you'll never want to hurt anybody else ever again. Congrats, Thorfinn, on becoming a true warrior.